She is the CEO of a global leadership company. She's an author. She's a relationship expert. You've seen her on Cityline. You've seen her on Good Morning America. But her passion is giving back and creating great leaders. Welcome to My Kind Canadian. This week, it's Dr. Karyn Gordon. Welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here, girl. Excited to be here. We got my coffee already.
Perfect. I've already had 3, so I'm ready to go. So firstly, congratulations on your book, The 3 Chairs. It's very fascinating, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. So during your teachings and your, I guess, leadership programs, there seems to be a recurring theme of EQ, so emotional quotient. And the cornerstone of that is self-discipline and confidence. So what role do you think kindness plays in EQ?
Well, it's a great question. So one of the things I speak about in my book, The 3 Chairs, is for people to be really successful, however people define it. Okay, people are going to have different definitions of success. When I started studying leadership and emotional intelligence, and I started studying around engagement and what makes somebody engage in their life, what makes somebody engage in work, in their team. I noticed that there was actually 6, what I call the 6 P's of engagement. I talk about it in the book. And one of the 6 P's is purpose. And that we all need a sense of purpose. And so while we have other P's are like profit, we need money, people, we need relationships, professional career growth, we need that, physical health. So there's like different 6, what I call the 6 P's of engagement. But one of the greatest ones and the greatest drivers is on purpose. So when I do our leadership training, whether or not it's with teenagers or it's with managers or CEOs of companies, I take them through the similar process on identifying how they actually define success according to the 6 P's of engagement. And I try to get them to identify purpose. And purpose is energy, it's fuel, it's like fire, it like just lights people up. And if people do not know what their sense of purpose is, they're going to feel like their life is meaningless. They'll feel like flat. And so in answer to your question, that's where it fits in. So in terms of purpose around giving back, so it's around like, how do you give back? Life cannot just be about self-serving. It's like, yes, we want to help ourselves, but we really want to give back to other people. And what I find fascinating about that question is a lot of people will be like, I knew something was missing, but I didn't know what, right?
Right. Couldn't put their finger on it.
Yeah, they couldn't put their finger on it. And when I get people to actually put pen to paper on what is your purpose, is usually a lot of times like it's like deer in headlights. They're like, I don't know. I just haven't really thought about it. And so I have to give them like lots of ideas. I have like cheat sheets to kind of get them kind of inspired. But kindness would be fitting under that 6 P of engagement under purpose.
And I think kindness begets kindness. Do you agree?
Absolutely. It's like all emotional intelligence. It's very contagious. So if you're with somebody who is very purposeful, you feel like, woo, I want to do something, right? If you feel we're something really dull and boring that hates their life, you kind of feel like, ugh, right? So emotions are contagious. Leadership and emotional intelligence are contagious. And so when you're with people that are similar, it just kind of fuels it. It's like this fire that kind of gets started.
You do some wonderful philanthropy work, and I've heard about one specific where you had some ladies in your house and you had some other beach ladies come in and you brought in some wonderful clothing and just made a beautiful atmosphere for these girls to express how they felt, what they needed. And of course, they were refugees, I believe from Haiti. Am I correct?
Yes, they were refugees from not Haiti, from another country, but yes, yeah.
Tell me about that, because I heard such wonderful things about it, and what a amazing experience for them, and obviously and the ladies in the community, because I think it was boom, eye-opening.
Yeah, so around the holiday season, Christmas, whatever people celebrate, that's generally when people always want to kind of start giving back. And, for a lot of people, they're like, they want to, but they don't know how to. They don't have a charity that they work with. They don't, right? So I had heard of a group called the Matthew House, and I met the director, and I loved with what she did. And she literally rescues refugees that are like living on the streets, takes them up, and they're all teenagers. Most of them are actually all teenagers. And the system in Canada is really broken. Like I didn't know any of this until I started kind of doing work with them, that, people can come to Canada as a refugee and they can kind of get that status, but there's really no system correct right now that really takes these teenagers, these children, and takes care of them. So literally they kind of go from the airport and they literally get put on the street. And so the Matthew House kind of comes in and they kind of pick these kids up and they kind of shelter them and get them lawyers to kind of get the proper paperwork. And they just do an amazing job. So I started working, doing some volunteering with them. And I just thought, and so I've kind of got that part. And then I've got all these amazing friends in the beach that want to give back, but they don't know how to do it. So I
Right.
thought, well, why don't we do what I called meaningful Christmas? And we did it for a number of years. Not last year, we couldn't because of COVID. But where I would bring these girls into our house, and I would round up all my wonderful friends, and I would let these girls tell their story, because it's not just about getting new clothes and new purses. Although the women in the beach were
Enjoy that.
very generous. They're like bringing bucket loads of like clothes, like I've never even seen. It was like it was a whole other party. But what I really wanted the girls to share their story, because, for a lot of us, we don't know what it like. We just have no concept of what it feels like to be basically running for your life.
No.
And so for them to share their story, to share where the map was, with where they came from, to share kind of what that journey was for them, and really for us to kind of like, love and support them. And so it was meaningful for both ways. And I think that's really important piece around kindness, is that kindness is not a one-way street. Like
Mm.
when we give, we receive, right? Like it's like this mutual, it just, and I had so many of these moms say that was like one of the most amazing experiences, not only for them, but also their children. And so it's nice to kind of think of experiential ways to kind of give back, and especially for children, for parents listening, thinking about experientially, how can we teach generosity and kindness? Let's not just talk about it as a value. How can we actualize that value? What can we do practically to really kind of inspire our children?
And it's great to give money and to support charities, but I feel experimentally,
Yes.
or you live it and
Yes.
you can show it and you emulate it. Is that what you think?
Yes, and you can, I think so a lot of the work I do with organizations is around value systems and mission statements, but you have to actualize those values,
Mm.
because otherwise they're like words on a piece of paper. So, just this morning I was doing some team coaching with a company in the States, and they have all their values. I'm like, okay, that's great, but then what's the actualized value? Like, what's the action step?
Right.
When you talk about communication, what's the action step? When you talk about compassion, what's the action step? And I do the same thing with families. We'll have these ideas of these concepts around values, but how do you actualize that? And so when we think about compassion, we think about generosity. Those are beautiful words, but how do you show it? What do I see? What's the action step that I can actually see? And so I think for a lot of us as parents, and even as professionals, as adults, think about, okay, if I really care about that, then what am I doing? And so that's where there's a gap, where a lot of, and that's where the ladies in the beach, there were a lot of people wanted to, but they just didn't know how to. And so if we can kind of provide options, then people get engaged, they get excited about it.
And as to your point, you need to execute, right? But sometimes we don't know how to execute. So what did they say? Ask a busy person, they'll get it done. And
Yeah.
that's you. Yeah. Yeah, we have some mutual friends, and I asked some of the girls, I said, tell me a little bit about Karyn Gordon.
Yeah.
And their first word was organized. Organized. Super hyper organized and hyper busy, and she gets stuff done. As they say, you want
Yeah.
something done, ask a busy person. You are the person.
Oh,
So
that's
do you find that energizes you, just that organization, that off you go?
Yeah, I feel like time is ticking, and I want my life to matter. And I have a lot of things I want to do in my life. So let's not waste time here, people. Let's not waste time. Let's get the project going. Like, I really feel like there's a lot of things I want to do. There's a lot of things I want to have an impact on. I just don't want to waste my time. And so, anything that I do a lot of goal setting. I do it as an individual, I do it with my family, I do it with my kids, I do it with my husband, I do it as in a company. Like, and so I'm really big on know what you want, like know what you want, and then put the plan, like create the action step, and step on the gas. Like, because once we do that, when we and it kind of goes back to the 6 P's that I was talking about earlier, when we really know what our definition of success is,
Mm.
however people define is very personal. But if we have clarity on these 6 categories, if I can, these are the goals that I have, and this is with what I want, and I can step on the gas, talk about a fulfilling life, right? I mean, they've done a lot of studies on correlation between goal setting and happiness and self-discipline,
Ah,
actually. Because people who are very self-disciplined, they get stuff done. So
okay.
so people who have a goal and you're self-disciplined to get the goal done, you will feel good about yourself because you're creating the life that you want to create, versus the person that will talk about their goals, but then they don't do anything. And so, when we talk about wellness for kids, we talk about health and wellness for children and mental health and all of that. One of the first things I say, get your kids to set goals and encourage them to step on the gas, because you will see a direct correlation, a high correlation with that and their overall wellness and their happiness.
Now, you do a lot of talks, and I know you did some to some school children. What
Yeah.
is the question they ask you most?
You mean what children ask the most?
Yeah,
I would
kids.
say that's a good question. The biggest question I would say is, how can I be happy?
Ah,
Yeah,
wow.
there's a real curiosity and happiness. And when I explained to him about happiness, and it kind of goes back to the self-discipline, happiness is the result when we're self-disciplined. Happiness is it's like the after. So if somebody wants, for example, if one of their goals is to be physically fit, they're like, okay, if they can be self-disciplined about getting into a program about
Mm.
being physically fit, happiness will be the fruit of their labor. It is the result.
Ah,
Okay. And what the problem with our culture is, we're chasing happiness without teaching the self-discipline to get the happiness. If
right.
that kind of
So sneakers aren't getting them for you. A new
sneakers,
pair of jeans.
yes, yeah, it will be it will be a band-aid. But there's a real curiosity about purpose and meaning and happiness. That's where we're at right now. And which is so interesting, because we've got a mental health crisis happening,
Mm.
right? But it's like we're focusing on the wrong thing. And so, I think I would say for young people, that would be probably the number one question.
And volunteering. I find getting kids out and volunteering, or just seeing something different out of their bubble, wherever they may live, and engaging in someone else's life to either appreciate their own, or want more, or to do more, or to
Yeah.
be more.
Yeah. And that's where there's been a lot of studies around gratitude and empathy and how they're correlated.
Mm,
So when we teach our children, I mean, gratitude is around, I'm thankful for the things in my life. Empathy is
right.
being centered, right? So these are two separate things, but they're highly correlated. So they've done a lot of research that when somebody is really thankful for their life, they have more emotional capacity to give to other people.
And do you think you can teach that? Can you teach empathy? Can you teach kindness and
100%.
self-discipline?
Yep.
So I think our generation, I'm being an ex, I think there's a couple things and a couple things missing. Is it too late for me? Karyn, is it too late? Am I okay?
No, it's definitely not too late. It's definitely not too late. And the cool thing is, when we show compassion and empathy, it also fuels the other way. When I actually, if I prioritize giving back to other people, all of a sudden I then feel good about myself, and I also feel like I'm making a difference and I'm having an impact, and I'll actually choose to be more thankful about things in my own life. And that's what happened when I've done all these events with the different refugees, is I would watch these people in my home from such a different life experience, and they were teaching each other. This is not a one way. The girls taught us, we taught them. And I think that's the difference. Like, this is not a pity issue. This is around, how can we learn from each other? What can we teach you, and what can you actually teach us? And so that's where, a lot of, with kindness, with compassion, is when we give, we receive. Like, it really is, we're just wired, we're hardwired for relationships, and actually in being with people.
I also loved watching you on City Line with Tracy, and you were speaking about Black Lives Matter. And I found your words really impactful. There was a different way you spoke about it that made me think, aha. And I don't know what it was. I think it's your empathetic nature. Tell me when you speak about that, what do you find is the easiest way to get through to people?
Well, with Black Lives Matter was really an interesting experience for me,
Mm,
because, I've done this work for 25 years. I'm a professional in my field. And yet I did not learn about Black Lives Matter through any of my education. That
no.
really, really disturbed me. Like, it didn't even bother me, it disturbed me that as a white female, that I could have so many blind spots that I'm not even aware of. And so
Mm,
the whole, with George Floyd's awful murder, and that whole week, and it was during COVID, obviously,
mm.
I remember just kind of literally putting myself in my bedroom and just reading everything I possibly could understand about systemic racism. And really, I felt like I need to understand this, as a white female. I'm working with companies around the world, and people are coming to me to help them understand it as being white, and all, obviously of all colors. But it was really a lot of my white business leaders that were so afraid to talk about it, that I, as a leader, I need to understand this myself. And so I needed to just dive right into it, pull it all out, understand my own blind spots, understand my own unconscious bias, understand systemic racism that I was not taught. My doctorate's in family systems and systemic upbringing. So that piece was very familiar to me, but really understanding systemic racism is very different. And so I just had to just dig right in, pull it all up and understand for myself so I could be. And so when you understand something more, you can be much more empathetic. So I understand more white people that are afraid to talk about it. I understand more now what my Black friends, people of color friends have experienced. I understand because I just dug right. I just try to root out this these blind, and I mean I still have them. We all have them. I mean, for anybody who kind of questions unconscious bias, questions blind spots, do your research. Like you've got there is so much data out there, but you have to kind of lean into it. And I think for a lot of people, they're scared of it. There's so much of that white fragility. There's so much fear about it that we just, oh, I don't even know how to do it. And we just got to charge towards it. If we really want to kind of grow, no growth happens when we stay in our comfort lane. Like if we want to grow as people, we need to step outside of the comfort lane and really kind of like embrace the discomfort. And it feels uncomfortable.
It's awkward. It's a hard conversation to have.
It is a good conversation to have.
But it's a hard one.
But it's hard one.
But we can do hard things, they say, right?
Hard things. And if you want to have impact in your life, you got to learn how to do hard things. Like, so that's where like this whole thing about, oh, it feels uncomfortable. I'm like, yeah, get over it. Put on your big girl pants, put on your big girl pants on, and we are going to go towards this because, this whole idea, but let's do with what's easy and let's do with what's comfortable. That's like a very small life. We want to have like impact and meaning and purpose. We got to charge towards the uncomfortable and put on our big girl pants and charge towards it.
And sometimes we make mistakes along the way, and that's part of the learning, correct? I mean, you learn, you adjust, you pivot. One of my least favorite words in the world, pivot, and pivot again.
Yes, exactly.
Right? So I feel like that is the journey, right?
Yes, that is the journey. And I think as long as we can, when we make a mistake, we own it. We figure out what would I have done differently, then we charge towards it. And let's get out of this mindset on victim. Like if there's one thing that I have such a pet peeve on is when people play the victim. Poor me, life is happening to me. We all have obstacles. We all have issues. We all have things that we've had to overcome. We all have roadblocks, but we want to kind of, again, goes back to those 6 P's of engagement. Like, let's really identify what does success look like for us, including that purpose, that giving back, and step on the gas, make a difference. And you literally will feel the impact emotionally, physically, spiritually, relationally. You'll actually feel the rewards kind of come back, but we do have to kind of step on the gas for it.
So Dr. Karyn, thank you for inspiring the next generation with such simple and practical tools to be great leaders and to have high IQ and to have a little kind on the side. And this is where entertainment and charity meet.